Welcome back to your hour. We're being Allison Stieger, and she's here to talk about how we can put a refreshing perspective on love and relationships. And she has some interesting concepts on that we're going to talk about. Hi, Allison. It's good to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I hope that this is of interest to your listeners.
Relationships are kind of um, sometimes they can define you, you
Right.
know, and they shouldn't, but they do. And sometimes we try so hard to make a relationship work that maybe shouldn't. And it kind of really throws everybody off.
That is certainly true. And yeah, I have learned now, I've been married happily for 20 years, that despite the fact that this is a conflict drawn to connection with other human beings, but luckily for us, we have these wonderful ideas that have come down to us from, I'm a professional mythologist, so I like to talk about how we can understand story and how we can understand how we show up in each other's lives as archetypes. And I've learned through my 20 years of work and also my 20 years of marriage that archetypes can really help us understand how we're seeing each other, what kind of expectations we're putting on each other without really understanding that we're doing it. And once we have a sense of what kind of archetypes we hold and what kind of archetypes other people see when they look at us, we can start to understand, okay, yes, I am willing to play that role for you, or I am not. And if we can look at our lives in the lens of archetypes, we can find a path forward to deeper intimacy, deeper understanding of each other, and deeper empathy for each other, and how we're both struggling to kind of just get through this human life that can sometimes be challenging.
So, can you kind of explain for us what you mean by archetype?
Yeah, of course. So an archetype is kind of, we think of it as almost like the most perfect example of any particular type of human behavior. And I know that's a little bit vague. So I will say, if you think of it like almost like a prototype, right? So if you think about the mother archetype, that's one of the most ancient archetypes that we have. So you understand, we can all understand what a mother is and how it's different from a king or a president or a ditch digger or an attorney, or, it's a different kind of role that's held in human life. And it doesn't even really matter if your personal mother was a good mother or a bad mother. You know what that means, that it's someone that takes care of you and nurtures you and either does that well or badly. But that role is an archetype, and we have a lot of them. Just about any type of way of being human is an archetypal energy that's being held. So if we start to understand archetypes and how we see them on each other and how we fill those roles for other people, then we can kind of get an idea of how we might navigate our relationships a little bit more successfully.
So that's how you just were inspired to kind of explore the connection between archetypes and relationships.
Well, I will say that in the early part of my career, it was about 20 years ago, it was about the same time I was meeting and marrying my husband. And he's a wonderful man. He's an engineer, and he wasn't always good at kind of expressing what he was feeling about things. But once I started to learn about archetypes, I understood by having him kind of go through some of that with me that he was, I was thinking ahead toward becoming a mother in our early marriage, but he was still in the lover archetype. He was really enjoying the romance and this great moment in both of our lives where we had found each other. And he could never have told me that in just his regular language, but by looking at it through archetypes, I was able to see, okay, so he loves being in love and the experience of being in love. And I really shouldn't rush him through that just to get to the next thing. We can just enjoy that lover energy together for a while longer. And about him really helped me be present for him in a way that he needed, and to remind me to enjoy that lover stage myself. So it really is
Because
helpful
it doesn't
because
last very long.
I know, right? You got to really enjoy it. I was just like, oh my goodness, I just want to be a mom. But no, okay, we can be this too, right? So there's no need to rush through that. It's a good part of life. So it got me started on this work, and I was studying Carl Jung's psychology. This comes out of the work of Carl Jung, and it helped me as I did eventually become a mother to say, okay, I'm holding that mother archetype now. What does my child need from that? How can I still be my individual and flawed and vulnerable self on the inside of this big energy of the mother archetype? how do I show up for my child in both of those ways at different times as they need that? And by understanding archetypes and what archetype you're holding for another person, you can either say, yes, I'm prepared to be that for you. Yes, I will be your caregiver. I'm here for you because you need my help. Or, well, you need to like start being the caregiver yourself. You need to not just fall into the trap of expecting somebody else to take care of you all the time. So, these are energies that push and pull in relationships. And what I think it allows us to do is to be able to say, okay, mom, I'm coming home for Christmas and I'm 35 years old and you're still treating me like I'm 8. Maybe we need to understand a little bit more deeply how you see the child archetype when you see me, and how maybe I'm not that anymore. And we can grow together into a deeper intimacy with each other by understanding these roles that we hold for each other. Because I think a lot of this is really unconscious for most people. We still do it. We hold these roles and we see each other as archetypes or as characters in stories all the time. But by starting to recognize how we're doing that, when we're doing that, and why, we can either agree to do it and show up with a more full heart for it, or we can say, no, we need to make an adjustment in our relationship and I cannot be that for you now. And then you have a deeper conversation that you're having, and either you're right to be partnered with that person or you're not. So
the more people are involved in a relationship, mother, child, parent, the thinner you have to stretch yourself. And so
well, yeah.
You have to decide what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
Well, and that's absolutely right. And it gives us another way to have those conversations, right? To say, okay, I believe that you are seeing me as that caregiver archetype and you want me to take care of everything while you just go off with your friends every night or whatever. I mean, this happens in a lot of permutations in a lot of relationships, and we don't know how to talk to each other about it, right? But if we have this new way to have the conversation, now we can start to get at things in a way that's not defensive, that you can kind of have empathy for the person and what kind of psychological need is being met for them by doing it this way. And if you can ask those kind of questions, then now you've opened up a dialogue that you might not have been able to have before. And that's the real value of this work to me, is to say, okay, I want to understand what it is that you need or not, and I want to understand what I need from you and whether you can do that for me. And once we start to have those conversations, we can either grow closer or split apart, whatever is needed. But it really does give us this wonderful new tool. So,
well, and when you understand where the other person came from, you kind of get a feeling of what his childhood was like.
Right.
Sometimes that explains a lot.
Well, if they're trapped in the child archetype, like I still just want to be taken care of. I don't want to grow up and go on to that next stage where I'm the one that's taking care of things. Mm-hmm. So if you can say, why are you stuck in that? What is it about that part of your life that is so appealing to you that you're willing to stay there at your age? And how can we either help you move on to the next part of your journey, or, change that? And, and there is something too about, if you are like, it's a mother and child type situation, like when you let go of someone, you also have to let go of some of the control of that. So, like I use the example, right? Like I know that I could ask my 2 teenage sons to make Christmas dinner for us. And that would be giving them a greater sense of autonomy as they're coming into adulthood. But it would be a hard thing for me to do because I would have to let go of a lot of control over that. And I know the meal wouldn't be as good as if I made it, because I'm a fantastic cook. So if I want to help them grow, I can do that. But I have to let go of control. And that sometimes can be really hard. Sometimes we want the child archetype so we can have the control. So, navigating that is a complicated thing. But I think this helps to give us a little bit more language and understanding around how to do that successfully.
Yeah. So how can we learn more about this whole topic, because it's really kind of interesting?
Well, I mean, I would encourage anyone to, you can either go to my own website, mythicstories.com, or, just Google the word archetypes, and it will start to teach you more about what that means, how you can find out more about which ones resonate for you in the lives and the lives of other people that or you're in relationship with. So just to have that word in your mind, to know, okay, this is a thing that I will sometimes see when I see another person. Like, I don't really see the person that you are. I only see the archetype. And it's a big energy sometimes because it represents everything about that for human life. So once you kind of get past that, then you start to see the person on the inside of it. And my favorite one when I think about dating is this idea of the archetype of, I call it the mirror. And what we do is we often will project our own needs onto someone else in an early dating relationship where we say, okay, you're my inner masculine or you're my inner feminine. And you don't always see the other person on the other side of that for a little while. And how attracted you are to them is going to be really dependent on how well they reflect your own inner nature back to you.
Right.
So once we start to understand that, then you can say, okay, like if you meet someone and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to marry you, like the second you meet them, you're like, okay, you don't know me. How can you make a decision? Well, it's because they're seeing themselves reflected back and they don't really know you. They only feel like you did a good job of reflecting them back to themselves. So as we get to know each other and deepen our relationships, then we start to get around that and we start to see the person on the inside of it. So just knowing that concept is really useful, I think. But really, it's just, I'm here to help anyone that wants help, but also you don't have to use me. You can go and just ask just look at the Wikipedia page even, and you can learn more about it. And it's a really good place to start. So.
And what was your website again?
Oh, it's mythicstories.com. Yeah, Allison Stieger at mythicstories.com. And I'm here. Anybody can sign up for 30 minutes if they want to ask me questions about this directly. I can do that for free and give you a little bit of guidance onto your own personal situation. Or, there's classes and all kinds of things available there as well. So if you're interested in that, come and check us out.
All right. Well, Allison, it was a real pleasure visiting with you today. Thanks for
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And we'll be back with more.